So hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. Now today we're going to be doing a tier list of the best boomer shooters for the PS4 and PS5. Now before I get started, I'm going to lay down a few ground rules for this list. So rule number one, I'm going to be partially ranking them based on their optimization for the PS4 and PS5. So do they crash? Do they freeze? How good is the button layout on the DualShock? So if there's a game that you cannot edit your controls or you can only choose certain presets, then that might bump it down a little bit. I'm also going to take price into consideration. I'm going to assume that people are buying these on the PSN store for full price or buying physical copies. I got a lot of them on sale, but I'm going to be thinking about bang versus buck. Number three, I will have much different criteria for a modern day boomer shooter versus something that came out like 20, 30 years ago. And for games that are modern games but are emulating classics, I will have very different expectations for those games, and I will get to that when I rank each one. For some personal biases out of the way, I'm only going to be talking about their gameplay and their visuals. When I play these games, I normally have a podcast on, I have the TV on mute, so things like the atmosphere, the story, the music are just not going to play a factor in my decision. And lastly, another personal bias, I like these kind of games for their frantic gameplay, for their amazing arsenals, and I like when the combat gets really hectic. What I dislike about these games is when that gameplay style gets very tedious and annoying to do. Now I know that's very subjective, but I'm gonna do my best to explain when that happens in each game and why. So without further ado, let's get it started. Starting off with Doom 2016, I'm gonna save the classic Dooms for later, but I'm gonna do Doom 2016 right there, Doom Eternal right in A tier, and Doom The Dark Ages is not going anywhere near this list. It's not going anywhere near my hard drive. It can kick rocks. That game looks awful. Doom 2016 is what I consider the benchmark to judge every other modern day boomer shooter. It's perfect. So what I expect out of a modern day boomer shooter is to, one, have a good arsenal, secondary fires for all your weapons, if not most of them. I also want there to be slick movement in the combat. So a slide, a dash, maybe a roll, something to evade oncoming projectiles. It also needs something to switch up the gameplay, like a solid melee, grenades, spells, power-ups, something like that. Something to change up the gameplay, so it's not just shooting over and over and over again. So I think Doom 2016 got this formula perfect, and Doom Eternal had this formula perfect until about 40% of the way through the campaign. So about halfway through the campaign, there's a mission called Citadel, and in there's an arena that is kind of built like a track, like a racetrack, and I found myself just running in circles over and over and over again shooting, and that got so tedious. Now this is kind of an outlier arena, but that point marks where the arenas kind of get a little bit sloppy in there. They're kind of hit or miss by that point. The other thing that was a major drawback was the green light countering system. I thought it was just going to be for that one boss, and when I saw it popping up everywhere, I knew this game was completely cooked beyond repair. That has to be the dumbest mechanic you could put in a boomer shooter. It grinds the gameplay down to a halt every single time. I just find myself sitting there waiting with a shotgun, waiting for that green flash, and it gets boring. It's really boring. So seeing these very irritating and confusing game design choices pop up more and more towards the latter half of the campaign and the DLC, that really made me lose faith in how good Doom the Dark Ages was going to be. And obviously I'm not going to rank it today. I probably won't buy it or play it ever. It just doesn't look good whatsoever. Don't try to change my mind about that. I will fight you in the comments. I'm not kidding. So I think the modern boomer shooter formula is perfect in Doom 2016, and it is perfect for about 40% of Doom Eternal, and then it really nosedives. It's still good, but the best part of Doom Eternal is when it's just more of the same from like the first half of the campaign, but the more they add new stuff in, the worse it gets. Also, that purple slime is a pain in the ass. And those like angelic looking demon things, especially the one that slows time, that one is not intimidating or fun to fight. It's just another nuisance. It's just irritating. So next up, we're going to do a really bad game, and that bad game is Strafe. Strafe is incredibly buggy. It lags and stutters when you're not even doing anything. The guns are kind of fun to use for about 2 seconds, but it's just not a good game. Now, this is going to be the bottom of D tier because it needs to be somewhere, but I will put games that I really enjoy and that I think are worth playing in D tier. Just this, there has to be a marker for what's like trash and unplayable, you know what I mean? So next up, we're going to do Proteus and Warhammer Boltgun. I'm going to do them at the same time for a few reasons. One, because they're similar prices. Two, because I bought them around the same time. And three, because I think they're very overhyped. I think they are two of the most overhyped entries into this genre. They are not bad, but I do think a lot of YouTube reviewers kind of glaze these games a little bit too much. I'm going to put Proteus in B tier, and I'm going to put Boltgun in C tier. Now, both of these games are smack dab in the middle of what I expect from a modern boomer shooter versus what I expect for a classic game or a modern game emulating a classic game. So Proteus has a really good arsenal. It's got good secondary fires on all of its weapons. It is kind of dragged down by the fact that there's no effective melee, there's no grenades, there's no power-ups, there's nothing to really splice up the gameplay and switch it up. The movement in Proteus is good. It's not slow, but it's annoying that you have to unlock the double jump and unlock the dash. And even when you do, it doesn't really revolutionize the gameplay. It certainly helps. It also did annoy me that when I unlocked the dash because I wanted to use it for combat, it made getting more of those unlock points more difficult because you really do need that double jump to access certain parts of the map. So when you're trying to farm for those points, it's going to take a lot longer if you unlocked the dash instead of the double jump. It didn't affect my gameplay for too long, but it certainly did affect it. I think Proteus is a really good upgraded version of classic games like a classic Doom or Wolfenstein, but I wouldn't really rank it as a modern day boomer shooter. What's good about it is that it has a very dark aesthetic, but it has very vibrant colors. I'm never lost and not sure what I'm looking at while I'm in combat. You know, the blood effects and the weapon effects, you know, the explosions, there's very bright neon colors. It looks amazing. It's a very good looking game, but it does embrace that retro style. So I highly recommend Proteus, but if you're expecting something on par with Doom or Shadow Warrior, you're just not gonna get that. Also, the way you switch weapons in Proteus is a little bit clunky, but it works. You have two options on the PS4 or PS5. You can basically have a straight line and you use the bumpers to go from left to right, or you have a grid style that you use the arrow keys to go up and down. I think you might be able to use one of the sticks. Now, I'm sure this works a lot better on PC. On the PS4 and PS5, it's not the best thing ever. It's certainly better than other games, but, you know, it is what it is. I also did have quite a few crashes and freezes with Proteus, so that definitely brings it down a little bit, and I will probably slide it down as I put more things in B tier, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it. So next up is Warhammer Boltgun. I'm going to start with things that I really like about the game. I like the chainsword. That's amazing. I like the grenades. The arsenal is pretty cool. I like how you can like dash into enemies, but I would have preferred to dash unilaterally and use it as a defensive thing, not an offensive thing, but it is what it is. What I dislike is unfortunately a really long list. I think the arsenal in this game should have just been folded in half, and half the weapon should have been used as alternate fires. I really don't understand why you have so many weapons in this game, but switching weapons for any controller preset is horrendous. You either have a straight line where you use the bumpers to get through it, or you have an up, down, left, right that you have to use the arrow buttons for, which doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why you couldn't just have your bolt gun and then your heavy bolt gun as an alternate fire. You could have your shotgun and your flamethrower as an alternate fire. You could have your laser and then your other more powerful laser as, you get what I'm saying. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It was a really baffling design choice. Also, the enemies are kind of all over the place. There are far too many enemies that blend into the background and are really hard to see. It's hard to distinguish nothing, nobody grunts from enemies that can actually take a lot of your health away. You have a lot of enemies that are just bullet sponges, and way too many enemies that have like really tiny sprites that are just really tiny enemies that swarm you. Those are really annoying, especially in the arenas of this game, because it has too many closed off, fast moving arenas, but you are a slow moving tank. It really just feels like you have challenges in this game that you don't have the tools to deal with, and it gets very, very irritating. So next up we have Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem. Now, I have not played Serious Sam 4. I'm assuming I would rank it around the same spot, but I've heard that Serious Sam 4 is a lot buggier, and this game is not clean of bugs either, so that's probably saying a lot. I think this game has a really good arsenal with really good secondary fires. It probably has my favorite arsenal out of any of these games. Where this game gets dragged down is that its movement is just way too simple. It's just sprinting and jumping. There's no sliding, there's no rolling, there's no dash, there's no jetpack, and I think a jetpack would really fit the Serious Sam games. I don't know why they haven't added one yet. So Serious Sam can get a little bit repetitive with it just being shooting, but what helps break that up are your gadgets and your power-ups. My favorite power-up has got to be the one that slows down time, especially when you're in that mission where it's a bunch of stairs leading up like a warehouse thing, and all those enemies are swarming you. That one was really fun. That's probably my favorite level in the game. I also noticed a really strange glitch where when I open the weapon wheel and then I shut it off, the game will force me to look left before I'm allowed to look right. I don't understand why this happened. You guys can let me know if the same thing happened to you, I guess. So the gameplay of Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem is nowhere near as deep and complex as something like Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal, but it is fun. I love how you can dual wield. That is something that really no other game lets you do to that extent. The weapons all feel very satisfying to use, and they're all useful until the end of the game. Would highly recommend if you are a fan of the genre. So next up we have Sprawl, and I'm going to put Sprawl in C tier. Now, its wall running mechanics and its parkour really separate it from its peers. My problem is that the parkour doesn't really change the combat all that much. I never found myself, jumping off walls and shooting all that much. It's really just separated from the rest of the game. And I had a problem with the fact that some of the mechanics just don't blend super well together. So for example, when you slow down time, there are hitboxes where you can either get headshots or you can shoot their jetpacks and blow them up. The problem with this is that sometimes the hit registry can be very hit or miss, literally hit or miss. And sometimes you hit someone and they get stunned instead of blown up or headshotted, which would be fine if there was a glory kill system, but there really isn't, and forcing you to either shoot again or finish them off with your sword it really just gets in your way, just makes it annoying. So there's just not a great cohesive flow to the combat. In addition, it just doesn't have the best arsenal. It's nothing you haven't seen before. I haven't unlocked all the weapons, but you can expect the expected. You can expect a shotgun, dual wield submachine guns, pistols, but nothing that is going to blow your mind. And there aren't other tools separated from that, like grenades or spells or cybernetic, whatever, to really bounce off of it. The slowing down time is a really cool feature. I just wish it was utilized better in this game. So next up we have Shadow Warrior 3, and that is going high A tier. I love this game. This game is the closest thing you can get to the perfection that is Doom 2016 and the first half of Doom Eternal. It has really fast and responsive movement with your sliding and your dashing. It has a good arsenal, and it also has other tools and tricks to bounce off your arsenal. You have your sword, which is effective for enemies late into the game. You also have these elemental orbs that are scattered around these arenas that you can pull towards you and throw towards enemies, and it never gets old doing the glory kill animations on the ice grunts and using their heads to freeze other enemies. It also has traps in certain levels that you can activate, and it is really satisfying to watch a trap get a bunch of enemies all at once. That really never gets old either. So now for some downsides of Shadow Warrior 3, I'm going to start with the gameplay and then I'll talk more about the optimization. So in the gameplay, it's pretty common that you're going to fall off certain platforms in the heat of battle, and after a while that does get really irritating. There are a few enemies that are bullet spongy here and there, and the arsenal is good, but there are a few weapons that kind of stick out. Your grenade launcher is just very underpowered. Even the animation of it just doesn't look very satisfying. It doesn't really blow shit apart like I want it to. Also, the crossbow that shoots those little discs, I honestly ignored that weapon throughout most of the game. It didn't feel highly effective. It might get you out of a jam from time to time, but I more or less ignored that weapon for most of my playthrough. As far as optimization, the control presets work really good. Never had any problems with those. I did run into a few glitches here and there. Nothing game breaking, but I did have some full-on crashes from time to time. So that does definitely bring it down. But for 40 bucks, you could do a lot worse. So next up we have Ion Fury, and I'm going to put Ion Fury in the D tier. Now I know that might make some people a little bit upset, but I did say that there are games that I enjoy that are going to be in D tier. So Ion Fury is a good emulation of a classic Duke Nukem or Wolfenstein kind of game, and it did take a little bit to grow on me. It starts off kind of slow, and I really did not like it in the first chapter, but as I finished that and got to more of them, I started to enjoy myself more. The arsenal is just nothing crazy. It's nothing to write home about, nothing you haven't seen before, and I had similar problems as Warhammer Boltgun. When this game tries to be an arena shooter, it really fails. So the showdown that's right in front of the police station really showed off the limitations of the design and the gameplay. I'm going to talk about the design first. I don't know why there is not a weapon wheel in this game, right? Because you have to use the arrow keys, and if you're playing on PS4, you're forced to either stop moving and switch weapons, or you have to switch hands and move with your left hand, not look around, and then switch with your other hand. It's very awkward, and when you're fighting an arena style where there's so many things coming at you, it just does not work. It's counterintuitive. Also, when you're clearing the arena, it just shows off how bad the explosives are. Like the grenades, for one, have a mind of their own. They're terrible to use most of the time. And when you're throwing grenades or using the rocket launcher, it only hits one or two enemy sprites. And I found that really irritating, that your crowd control weapons don't control the crowd. I think Ion Fury is best when it has a Quake level pacing, but when it has a really intense pacing, you just don't have the tools in the game to deal with that. I do think it's a good emulation of classic games. I think the environments are really fun to look at, but honestly, I would recommend buying a remaster of classic games over buying Ion Fury. It would probably save you a lot because for its asking price, there's much better deals you can get. So next up we have Postal Brain Damage. Now this is another one that took a while to grow on me, but once it did, I was having a lot of fun. That first arena in this game is a blast to play. Now this is the kind of game that you play for its weapons and not its shooting. It has some very unique weapons, but the shooting just feels so cheap and jank, you know? Overall, it's a fun game. It's just not the most technically perfect game in the world. So next up we have Project Warlock. Project Warlock is a great emulation of classic shooters like Wolfenstein and Hexen. It's very Hexen coded. It has a very expansive arsenal and a lot of magic spells to unlock as well. I would almost argue it has too much stuff in this game. What really killed my experience with this game was that intense and sudden difficulty spike for the first boss. What was really annoying about fighting that boss is that shooting the boss does not progress you through the boss battle any faster. It's one of those bosses you just run and hide from while you kill its minions, which was just not the most fun thing in the world. And what added insult to injury was the fact that you get one life for that boss battle. So if you die, you're supposed to go back and play the entire level again. But fuck that, obviously. And I found myself just closing the game and restarting it and closing the game and restarting it over and over and over again. And that was obviously a ton of fun. So that really took away from my experience and made me put it down for months, honestly. But after that, it's pretty much smooth sailing and the game is nowhere near as difficult. So I don't know why they did it like that. That would make a lot more sense for a final boss battle, but it's solid. For the asking price, it's firmly in B tier. If I was ranking just off my enjoyment, it would probably be a C tier, but for how good of a deal it is, it's definitely B tier. So next up we have Turbo Overkill, and Turbo Overkill is going high A tier. If it weren't for a few nitpicks I have, it would be S tier. The arsenal is amazing in this game. Every weapon is incredibly useful and its alternate fires are awesome. The chainsaw leg is goated. It's so fun. It's way better than any melee. The rockets you can shoot as well. Switch up the gameplay. Adds a lot of variety. You can slow down time as well later on in the game. There's just so much. And the bright neon aesthetic, it's just beautiful. I did get lost in this game a few times. There's a few parts in the game where it's very difficult to know exactly where you're supposed to go. But other than that, it's a flawless game. My one nitpick for its optimization on PS4 and PS5 is the fact that your weapon wheel is tied to your arrow keys left and right. So you can either go left and right through the weapon wheel, or you can hold one of them and then scroll through the weapon wheel, which works, but it just slows you down in the middle of combat. The other option is to quick switch. So if you go between these two weapons in a weapon wheel, you can hit circle and it will automatically switch between that. But it would have just been so much better if the weapon wheel was tied to a face button so I could switch them as quickly as possible. That just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and it just kind of drags it down a little bit. So next up we have Wrath Aeon of Ruin, and I'm going to put this one in D tier. Even if everything in this game worked perfectly, it would not be higher than B tier, but this game is buggy as hell. So Wrath Aeon of Ruin is a Quake-like, so if you play Quake and you just can't get enough of it, you might enjoy this game. It has a really cool arsenal. The secondary fires on some of the weapons are really cool. It also has spells to kind of switch up the gameplay. So pretty unique game. The problem is that it is so unstable of a game. You're gonna run into some weird bugs and glitches. I had a save file corrupted, so it just doesn't run well. It's really hard to recommend, but I did have some fun with it though. So next up we have Forgive Me Father. Now this has a very beautiful comic book style art design. Its weapon roster is pretty interesting, especially if you choose certain upgrade paths. They become very Orwellian, monstrous looking weapons. You also have other spells to vary up the gameplay. My main problem is that your spells are tied to your arrow keys, so if you're running around, they're not the easiest thing to employ during really frantic combat. I also like how all of your weapons and your melee are still effective deep into the game. Optimization wise, it does have very long load times, but I never had any crashes. I had a few stutters here and there, but it's a pretty well run game on PS4 and PS5. Alright, from here on out, it's going to be all classic games. I'm going to put Quake 2 S tier, and I'm going to put Quake 1 in A tier. Optimization wise, they both run great. I did have a few stutters when I was loading into certain parts of Quake 2, but it didn't affect my gameplay at all. You can also completely customize the controls in both games, so you can play them however you want. I just enjoyed Quake 2 more than I enjoyed Quake 1, but it might be swapped for you, so there you go. So next up we have the Serious Sam collection, which is the first encounter, the second encounter, and Serious Sam 3. I'm going to put this one in C tier. These games don't run poorly. It's just for the asking price, $30, you can certainly get better collections and better classic games. So next up we have Chasm the Rift, and I'm going to put Chasm the Rift in C tier as well. I have not played a whole lot of it, but it's not my favorite thing in the world, but it is very cheap. So last but not least, we have the classic Doom games. Now, I'm going to put them all in S tier. They're all optimized really well. You can customize the controls however you like, and they're inexpensive, so you really can't go wrong if you're a newer fan or a fan from 20, 30 years ago. So there you go. So I'm editing the video right now, and I think it's worth mentioning that most of the time I spent playing the classic Dooms and Quake 1 was spent using my PS Vita emulating them. So obviously a much different experience than playing with the DualShocks and on the PS4 or PS5, but it was not a downgrade. I still enjoyed them a lot. So just how seamless I was able to play it on my PS Vita and not feel like I'm sacrificing anything. The controls are really easy to adapt and change how I want on the Vita. So just goes to show you how good of games they are and how worth it they are. So before I wrap this up, I'm just going to adjust a few of these. I like where all of these are. For A tier, I'm going to move Turbo Overkill to the top because for 20 bucks, it is such a good deal. And I'm going to put Shadow Warrior above Doom Eternal, but I'm going to put Doom Eternal over Quake 1. For B tier, I like where these are. I like where all of these are for B tier. For bang for your buck, I think Proteus is definitely up there. Serious Sam, get it on sale. Warlock, it doesn't exactly matter. C tier is going to be the most contentious. I'm going to put Forgive Me Father at the top of here. I'm going to put Bolt Gun right there. Put Postal Brain Damage right there. Put Sprawl right there. And I'm going to put Chasm the Rift over Serious Sam. So for bang for your buck and my enjoyment, this is what my C tier looks like. And then finally D tier, none of these are recommendations exactly, but I'm going to put Wrath, Aeon of Ruin above Ion Theory. I just enjoyed it more, but Ion Theory is definitely the more technically solid game. So there you have it. This is my list of the best boomer shooters for PS4 and PS5. If you enjoyed the video, like the video and subscribe for more.